Ready? Ready, set, go. Here I am. All right. So I actually wrote my notes out because or else I'll just spin and not keep on track. So bear with me if I read a lot. But as I said, what I wanted to present is the sort of a bit of the Holy Land pilgrimage that I went on late August, early September. I'm not going to be able to give a full picture of it. There was so much. It was 11 days, very intense. As everyone was saying, it is not a tour. It is a pilgrimage, and it was a pilgrimage for sure. Spiritual leader was our Bishop Gutierrez. We had the assistance of Reverend Canon Matthew Dayton Welch, who coordinated the travel plans. He spent years working in the Diocese of Jerusalem for the diocese there, and also he worked with the State Department. He has good experiences and contacts. And then we were also led by a Palestinian Episcopalian who has been doing this for years, long time, specializes in these types of tours. I will say as an aside, he had a lot of friends, if you will, and so we always had the right access when we needed it, and also, of course, I have a friend who has these really good things to buy, so that was there, but it was a very good trip, very intense, and I guess I'll kind of like sort of, and this is in the brochure for the pilgrimage, but we did encounter the gospel in stone and flesh, visited sites that mark the story of our faith and the people who keep the faith alive in the Holy Land today. Special emphasis on the Diocese of Jerusalem, including the Princess Basma Center, which is a center for children with issues that need aid and disabilities. We actually visited that center, quite valuable in terms of what they're trying to do with children throughout the West Bank and otherwise to help them. We visited many churches, trust me, many churches. And because they were at the various sacred sites that we visited, and many times that there will be a church that is built on top of or beside a site. And so we were able to go to those. Learned interestingly that there are a number of Christian churches in Jerusalem and in the West Bank, as you would imagine. The number of Christians living in the West Bank, Jerusalem, is getting smaller and smaller. But they are there to maintain the churches and to serve the churches. Many times the number of Christians living there is outweighed by the tourists. And I guess the other item is that most Christians are Palestinians. So you put that in the context of the challenges being faced by Palestinians living in the West Bank. You can just see there are these tensions that are created by them trying to exist. They are Palestinian. They are not a particular religion. They are a group of people. So I would say on a personal level, I can say I came back changed, restored, and renewed. I guess I'm not a person who expresses my spirituality much, but I was very much impacted by it. And that's something that stuck with me. Another thing I think was very much hit home was that you were seeing the actual location where you read in the Bible and the Gospel and hear in the readings of things that were happening. And it is somewhat, it has come up with some build-up in terms of spirituality and everything else, but when you're seeing it there, an actual seeing it there, it really strikes home. Much more intense than you would think. I need to get to the slides, but I mean, and I'll show you, we actually went to a place where, the scene where Jesus helped the lepers, the 10 lepers. Well, I was there at that church. I was there. I went to the church where the crypt is. So you just sort of, oh my gosh, yeah, I am. So that I also took with me memories and tokens from my family, well, my husband, my mother, my sister, and very close relatives. And I took them with me and also brought back and kept their memories with me. So very much helpful. So what we did was, you can go to the next chart. So we, as we went through, and I'm going to go through kind of in a quick frame of mind, although they're not, I'm going to try to speed through some of these at some point, but I try to sort of do a flow of the days that we went. Can't cover it all, there's just no way to cover it all. But we, what we did was, before I get to this chart, we did visit a lot of the sites in the Old City. Old City is fantastic. It's been there for thousands of years, and it's been the same for thousands of years in terms of the people living there and selling stuff and everything else. It's going through changes. The walls keep changing. Buildings keep changing. The basic structures there, churches are built on top of churches and everything else, but it's very much a value, interesting place. So what we did was that after we got there after we got the first full day, we went to a place called Ramallah, and we went to, since it was a Sunday, we had Eucharist at the St. Andrew's Church, which is the Episcopal Church in Ramallah. It is next to the Ardo Episcopal Medical Center, which right before we got there was the focus of an attack by the Israeli forces, because that center has become vocal in terms of protecting the rights of Palestinians. So the Israeli forces attacked it and also attacked the church. So you just, all while we were going through, we were living through and experiencing some of the current climate going on. And this is the entrance to the church, and this is the entrance to the center. Next chart. This is inside the church. We had Eucharist there, very much with many of the local members of the church there. Very good, very useful. Next chart. So then I just threw this chart in as we were driving around, and I tried to intersperse some of the charts, some of the scenes as we were driving through around our tour bus. This is the Palestinian Authority's government facility. So just to show you that they have a facility there. Next chart. This is some of the scenery, and I'll throw in scenery because it's always find that seeing the scenery that you're actually driving through, it brings it home that it's just like every place else. It's just, here we are, we're just living in a place. And so then we were building, as we go through this, as I show you over the next few days, we were going through visiting a number of churches. And as I noted, that the churches are built upon sacred sites within Old City or around, and the various churches are there. So we would go to the churches, meet the members of those churches, and experience that. But another point, as I would say, and you'll see it as I go through it, is that this is an example of the civilizations keep changing as invaders kept coming in and taking over and everything else, so that you will see where we would see where there would be a church which then be coming in, and somebody would be coming in and invading, and they would tear the church down and rebuild a church on top. So there was a lot of this building on top of the facility. Very, very active civilization. Next chart. This is the Damascus Gate. After we went to Ramallah, we came back and sort of walked around Old City, learned some things. This is a picture of I'd say, the Damascus Gate. And so next chart. And this is another picture of the Damascus Gate. And this is the entrance into the Old City. one of the multiple entrances into the old city. Next chart. This is a picture of the inside of St. George's, the Anglican church. We stayed at the guest house for the for St. George's. Very good church, very good facility. We didn't stay in a hotel at all. But the guest house was very good, well suited, food very good, and it was very close. Next chart. Our second day, we went to the south of Jerusalem to Herodium, which is the palace built by King Herod that is on a high plateau overlooking Bethlehem and Jerusalem. So Herodium here, you have Bethlehem over here, and you have Jerusalem over here. And it's a plateau where he could see everything going on. And if you'll think of some of your readings of what happened, this is the scene of some of what King Herod experienced. Next chart. I've kept in charts of sort of this. This is the scenes from this palace. It just shows you the expanse. Next chart. And just goes on. Next chart, I believe. And this is the map that shows you where it is. So it's a wide expanse. It's a desert. And so it just very much just opening there, and we would make imagining Jesus and traveling through here, and where he had to go. So that was interesting. Next. This is there are so many places you can't keep track of them all, but this is the Shepherd's Field. So Shepherd's Field, next chart. Shepherd's Field is there's a church there. This is where Gabriel was supposed to have come to the shepherds. There's a church there. The shepherds were living in caves, and so you hear that it was in a stable, but in reality, if you read the readings, the shepherds were living in caves, and this is probably more of the real type of location versus what is perceived in the Gospels. Next chart. And this is some of the scene again from the Shepherd's Field. Next chart. Again, these are more. I'm just showing you the scenes because I just wanted you to get the feel for Israel. Next chart. And this is the entrance into the church, which is right by the Shepherd's Field. Next chart. And so let's go back to the other chart. So this was another one, and again, I can't. There's so much to show there. We then, after we left the Shepherd's Field and walked through the church, we then went to Bethlehem, and this is where I'll show you go to Bethlehem. We visited various churches in Bethlehem, but I also do have to show you, this is the separation wall that is built in the middle of Bethlehem, which is built to separate out and build out what is basically the West Bank and the rest of Israel. You can see it next chart. I think there's one more chart. Again, it is just built around, and it just is this huge wall. And it's something that strikes you. You can't miss it when you see it. Next chart. This is one of the many of the churches that we experienced, and it just to show you the different churches is another example of the various churches and the religions that were there. Next chart. And this is the not the church. This is the it's Church of the Annunciation. But there are various churches we went to, very holy sites. Next chart. These are scenes again from that look out over the old city, and you can just see that it goes down. And then, like in here, there are then living quarters built on top of the old city buildings next to it. This is the Church of St. Peter, and this is a church that we went to and visited. Next chart. This was a church that was much of a, I had not surprised the church that when they uncovered it, they realized, and there are scenes which I don't show, which I'm not showing, which is where they view that Jesus was tortured before he was crucified. And they have the various scenes which they have dealt with, and which was very striking to go into those rooms, down and watch and go through them. But they've done the excavation. They feel that this is where he was tortured before he was crucified. Next chart. So you can see it just goes back to this emotional ride that you go through the whole time. After we, our next time, we did go into the desert, and we had a Eucharist at dawn. Because, by the way, every day we had some, either as morning prayer or Eucharist. We always had a service almost every day at various locations led by the bishop. And so next chart. These are scenes from this desert, just beautiful scenes. Next chart. Go back one. I'm sure we'll get to the chart. Go ahead. And so it's just very much of that. That was a that the scene next chart. My pictures are all messed up. Shouldn't do this in the middle of the night, you know. But this was a scene. This was a Mount of Temptation in Jericho, and it's actually built upon. This is the side of a mountain essentially, and so it just shows you another type of church that is there. Next chart. These are our group of pilgrims. They are members. You have bishop there. You have a number of clergy. You have members of diocesan staff, as well as you have a number of members of churches in the diocese. We all got together. Great feeling of camaraderie, and we see each other and just can't get over seeing when we get together. About 25. Unfortunately, we just lost one of the members of our pilgrimage. He was just killed in a car accident recently. So it just, it just hits you very much when something like that. You were not totally not expected. Next chart. And so this is one of the churches that we were in, and to show this was the. This is, I think, the Anglican Church. Next chart. So then, as we traveled around, we did go to the Sea of Galilee, and we renewed our baptismal vows. Quite emotional. Next chart. Yeah, me. And you were able to. This is where, and you were able to really have a spiritual time there at the Sea of Galilee. Exactly. Next chart. Then we started touring around more places, and we were up at and we were up around the Sea of Galilee, and we visited a number of places, whether it's Peter's house or the place for the Sermon on the Mount, or which is the Mount Beatitude. We went to Paphos, where we gave a sermon and of the loaves and fishes. We took a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee, And we visited the ruins of the birthplace of Mary Magdalene, which is there. We were up here, so we went all throughout these places. Next chart. And then these are some of the scenes from the various churches that we went to. And next chart. I should write these. And then here's a picture of the sign for the Sea of Galilee. But again, it just shows you some of the scenes that when we were there. Next chart. This is the boat. This is the Sea of Galilee, and having some services there. Next chart. Now, flipping back, then when we came back to Jerusalem, as we closed down our days, we then went to the Western Wall, and this is the approach to the Western Wall. Go to the next chart. And this is the sign to the welcoming of the Welcome Wall. And this goes through a little bit of the history of the Western Wall. Next chart. And this is the beginning of the Western Wall. You can just go to the next chart. And this is the actual Western Wall, where people can go. We were able to go early in the morning before a lot of people were there. Next chart. You can see you can see the pictures in the press. Here it is. There are walls because over here and so it is separated out so that the Christians, non-Jews are here and Jews can be over there. Next chart. There's me. We were all able to go up and have a moment at the wall, put a note on the wall. Next chart. And this would be on the other side of the screen, and that is more for Jews to have. Next chart. This is the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which marks the site where Prophet Muhammad's night journey into heaven and back to Mecca. It has restricted access to this. In prior years, Jews were not allowed to have access to the site. Again, that is changing, and they are being given allowed access to it. It's quite an impressive site. Next chart. This is part of the Dome of the Rock. Very open space. Next chart. And it is. We can't go inside, but we can walk around it and just experience the site. Next chart. Again, we were able to do it in the morning, so we were able to take some shots without a lot of people. But you can just see it's a very sacred site for the Muslim faith. Next chart. And then after that, we then did go back to St. George's and had service at the cathedral because it was Sunday. Next chart. And then we again were able to go and look at various sites. This is some of the sites looking over to the old city. Next chart. This was interesting. This was the Israeli Museum, and they have and they have where the Dead Sea Scrolls are, and they do have this built up of the old city, a replica of the old city. Next chart. You can see you just see the expanse of the old city, which is there. Next chart. I had to show this one. This is Jerusalem Santa, Holy Land. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was just we all kind of got a crack out of that one because you have to have a picture Next chart. And here is me getting my tattoo. Next chart. And this is the oldest tattoo place since 1300. Next chart. And there's my tattoo. But there were a number of people, I don't know why it became, of course you have to have a tattoo. Excuse me. Even Bishop said, well, you have to have a tattoo. He has a tattoo. But we all did it. I was not going to, but, while you're there, why not? One of those things. And it's the Jerusalem cross. So I have a Jerusalem cross. I don't know. But again, it's a very good memory to have next year. Oh, let's go back to that. And this is Matthew Dayton Welsh, who will be the canon, who will be leading and be very part of the next tour. So you can't miss that next tour. These are that we were winding up and concluding. We went to Mount of Olives and the Garden of Gethsemane and Pool of Bethesda, various sites as we were concluding our tour. And this is from Mount Olive, and that's looking back over to Jerusalem on the Old City. Next chart. Just more scenes just to show you and get a good sense of Jerusalem. A comment, I didn't have pictures of other parts of Jerusalem, but again, it's interesting that Jerusalem has the Old City, but then it has the other part of Jerusalem, which is a very metropolitan city, and the difference in cultures is fascinating, because you go to the Israeli or Jewish side of Jerusalem, and it is built up very. It's very metro. As I say, a city you'd almost say, gee whiz, where am I? Because it's just like every major city. Of course, a European city, because it's not. But then you go a certain distance and you come to the Old City, and you come to the Palestinian side of Jerusalem. So it's just a total little different environment that you see. But this is primarily the Mount of Olives, and that's why you can see the main city over here and the Old City here. Next chart. And these are the various churches of the various churches well, this was the garden, various churches near the Mount of Olives and the Garden of Gethsemane. Next chart. There again, the churches that are nearby, Mount of Olives. Next chart. This is just a poster on the Sanctuary of Gethsemane. Next chart. This is the chart, another one of the churches nearby. Go to the next chart. Inside this church. Next chart. This is this is the station. This is next chart. Let's see. Okay. Go next chart. Next, go back. I put my charts out of order, pictures. But next chart, one back. These are, again, this is a picture of St. Peter Gethsemane, which is the church where I mentioned that Jesus was tortured. You can see the things there. Next chart. And this is the part of as we were doing the last day, we did the Stations of the Cross. We walked through very early in the morning and did the Stations of the Cross, did the readings, and then went to the empty tomb spent a fair amount of time there. Next chart. And these are just scenes from inside that chart. Next chart. Again, I can't. It's hard to capture and express what you were experiencing there. But as you would go through, you would keep seeing different scenes striking. These are the final few charts. This is an example of a St. Anna facility, which shows you, as I was saying, the different tiers of civilization, if you will, where there would be the original, next chart, right? If you go down here, this is the time of Jesus. And then as each time there were civilizations coming through and they would tear things down, they would build up on top. So this is a site where they have actually tried to excavate. But you can just see that over time, things have been built on top of each other. Next turn. Yeah. And this is the sign of St. Anne. But this is fascinating because it shows you what is there, how long this place has been there. What, 2,000 years. Next turn. And this is a cathedral of St. George, of the Anglican Church. I'm not doing justice to these charts and to these pictures, but it really was a quite monumental experience. And I'm thinking that there are other pictures that I could share. If people are interested in and go through in more detail, but just the flavor of what you are there, because it's a fascinating country. You will experience and learn so much that you're just being overwhelmed all while you were there. The people are great. Food was good. We always had very good food, I must say. The tour guide made a point of having very good local cuisine all the time. The old city, there were things you could look at and purchase, of course. Brought back a number of spices and everything else from Old City. But again, overall, I got a lot out of it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and if you can do it, you really should. And definitely go on a pilgrimage, not a tour, because then you will get totally immersed in what is there. There are maps that I have that sort of give you this picture of the various sites, so that they have within the current country. And the other thing I guess I would say is that as we were traveling around, you realize that you have Jerusalem here. Nazareth was only maybe less than maybe an hour drive, but then you realize that people, Jesus and others, they were walking. And so they were going up to Nazareth, they would come and then to Jericho and Bethlehem, so that where they had to walk, it was, yes, very open, and actually the countryside, and one reason I was showing you the countryside is that countryside hasn't changed. So what he was walking through was what you saw. It has been built up. So that's another flavor that you got. And to be able to experience that and walk through those areas. And then go through the physical places was quite striking. So that's all I can say. That's it.
It clearly had a emotional, psychological impact on you.
Yeah.
Just that kind of body of seeing all the history.
Yeah, right.
Coming away, though, did it change your narrative? Did you come away with a different understanding?
Yes.
Of what you had learned?
Yes.
Pretty much what the story tells.
Yes, because when you go there, number one, a lot of times you learn and you read the Bible, read the gospel, and you learn and you hear the story, which has been somewhat built up through the Gospels, and you know that the Gospels were written years after the life of Christ. And you also know that they were written from the perspective of the Christian church at that time. And so therefore their narrative was slightly different in reality from what actually occurred. So then when you go there and you walk through and you see what you see where Jesus actually was, and you start learning, you actually say, oh, so that's actually what happened. And I mean, like, it was not a manger, it was a cave, you know? So it becomes much more home. Jesus became much more of a real person as opposed to some spiritual figure. So it brings it much more home in that sense. You know, cut to the chase. This is, you cut through the Gospels and here it is. Here's a real story. So that's what it was much more notable. So yeah.
Seems like your itinerary was sort of Bethlehem, Nazareth, and then the Sea of Galilee, where
Yeah, we spent a time in.
and then you finished with Jerusalem, Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, we did a fair amount of, like any other thing, we were based in Jerusalem. We did go down to Herodian, to Bethlehem, over to Jericho, and then up to Nazareth, and then up to the Sea of Galilee. We actually drove around the Golan Heights, which was kind of like everyone that's kind of there. But, and didn't show pictures of them because it's just, well, yeah, it's Golan Heights. So. But, I mean, we were kind of notable for the amount of the UN forces sitting in the middle between the two countries, which is kind of an interesting picture. So that, and then we came down, and then the last part of our time was in Jerusalem, and we started going through I said Mount of Olives, so we walked down his path as Jesus was coming into Jerusalem before he died in the last days. Came down there and experienced the whole element of the crucifixion. So yes, and by that time you were kind of like, okay, then we left. I would say as an aside, total current situation, we're also being very aware of that we were in the West Bank for the most part, and traveling in and out of the West Bank and into Israel and back was very difficult for us, but then extremely difficult for the Palestinians. So you learn that as well, the current environment. But you also felt very safe, to be honest with you. You know, there again, it was you were with a guide who knew how to do this quite well and made all the arrangements, so you felt totally secure all the time. There was not a feeling of that, and which was okay. And that was something else. Again, to be very comfortable with. But yes. So anyway, so I can send around some extra pictures if folks want, and actually share the map, because I think that was interesting. I can just take a picture of the map and share it, because you just learn an awful lot by doing that. You can't get over how much I learned, and reinforce what I think, how I view, and what I believe, which I didn't think I would do. And I was like, gee, look, I actually did it. Anyway.
Thank you.
A cynical lawyer has actually got spiritual into
There's another March, I believe.
March.
There's another.
Yeah, and I know that there were like 30, yeah, so you could sign up for it. It is pricey, but there again, I found it well worth it. The tour is a package tour. Everything is taken care of for you. Essentially, as soon as you get to the airport, you're taken care of. You have no real other expenses, except for what you want to buy, if you want to buy anything, and you have to buy something. Excuse me. I know, and actually, I know, and yeah, I know, I have, right there. There was actually, I did want to, I wanted a tattoo, and he would not give me the one I wanted because I had I have sensitive skin, which, see, by going to somebody who has been doing this for how many years, they actually tell you what you can and can't do, which is good. So-
Did everybody go on the same flight over, or did you book your own flight? And then
We
you
booked our
met
own flight, but to be honest with you, we engaged a travel agent who, again, has been doing these types of tours for the Episcopal Church. And so a group of us, about 10 of us, all got the same flight. So we flew out of Newark, direct flight, and we all went over. So therefore, when we were picked up, we were just, as I say, once we got to Newark Airport and past security, we were done. And we were taught what to say and not to say to Israeli security, which is, you are taught what to say, what not to say. But yeah, so it's clearly done. And it's pricey, but the airfare, of course, the airfare varies. The tour package itself, I think I was reading the brochure, it's like $3,700. That does cover everything. And airfare, of course, is separate. And that just depends upon what the going rate is at the time. So yeah, so it's, I guess I felt very worthwhile in that sense. It was dry. We hit it when it was very hot there. I will say there was a lot of walking. Be prepared, a lot of walking. And so if you have any issues about walking, don't go. Because you are going to be expected to do a lot of walking, a lot of hiking, a lot of climbing, up and down. So you need to be prepared for that. So you do need to be somewhat physically fit and be able to do that. Very hot weather, because we were doing the end of August, September. Of course, throughout the world, it was very hot at that time. But, you know, March would be much better. I would think that March would be much better weather-wise. And that's true. And, yeah, so yeah, but March, yeah, that would be better weather. But still, you know, you will also enjoy your company. Everyone will get together well. The facilities are very good. You have no concern about where you're staying. Another thing is that you're at a guest house. You're not at a hotel. So you stay very close to the local environment at that point. You're not in some Americanized hotel, which defeats the purpose of going, in my view. Anyway, that's it.